Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Investigators working around the clock to capture all suspects in the Leland mass shooting.
Yeah, a fifth person has now been arrested, but multiple people are still wanted for their roles in the violence. Police have now arrested 33-year-old Reginald Martin. He is charged with capital murder. He joins four other people who were arrested and charged in that shooting. All but one are charged with capital murder.
And the FBI also still searching for three people. You may recognize two of the suspects' photos, but now another woman is wanted in connection to the case. Tonight, 3 on Your Side's Quentin Smith is in Leland and tells you how residents are still coping with this tragedy.
It's been days since that deadly mass shooting happened here in downtown Leland. In fact, yellow crime tape is still visible on the scene. Even though it appears to be business as usual here in downtown, residents say that horrific tragedy is still fresh on everyone's minds.
For a shooting of this magnitude to hit home was very devastating for us. You know, it makes you clutch your pearls. It makes you hold your children a little bit tighter.
For Angela Buckner, this shooting still has her feeling uneasy. She knew one of the victims, 19-year-old Calvin Plant. He's described as being a funny and respectful person. Buckner, who serves as the field secretary for the local NAACP chapter, has also spoken to several family members of victims, including Shelbyana Powell. In all, 6 people were killed. 10 others were injured in the shooting. The victims range in ages from 18 to 41 years old. The deadly mass shooting happened early Saturday morning along Main Street in downtown Leland, just hours after the high school football game. It was homecoming weekend, and Buckner says everyone was out celebrating and having a good time until things suddenly took a deadly turn.
We want to make certain that the young neighbors understand that, you know, there are consequences to their actions, and people should be able to go out and enjoy homecoming without having to look over their shoulders.
As the community continues to cope with this tragedy, Buckner says it does bring her some sense of relief knowing investigators are tracking down those responsible for this horrible crime.
We want to make certain that we dot every I and cross every T. And from what I gather, they are combing through all of the intelligence that they have gathered, and we're just wanting to make certain that they get the right people.
So far, 5 arrests have been made, and investigators say more are expected. Reporting in Leland, I'm Quentin Smith.
And of the victims' families, one of the victims' families is releasing a statement on his death. Calvin Plant was killed in the violence. His mother says she was with Plant when he was killed. The family released a statement saying in part he was the baby of the family and his father's only child. He will be greatly missed. Please pray much for our family as we navigate through these difficult times.
Welcome back to True Thursday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, the Mississippi homecoming shootings, that's what they were, folks. They have left a trail of death and destroyed families. They happened, and last Saturday morning, we in Mississippi woke up to these types of devastating reports. Multiple shootings at multiple homecoming football games in the central part of the state. 5 separate shootings happened at celebratory events, taking the lives of these precious young people that you could see pictures of here, like Mr. Plant. And still, these folks are at the beginning of their lives, people. The beginning of their lives. It's such a tragedy. Parents, relatives, friends, and communities they're still reeling while authorities including the FBI, are in a massive manhunt to try to find out who the perpetrators of these heinous murders are. And they've had some success, as you just heard. 5 folks are in custody, but some are still at large. The usual reactions are occurring with calls for more gun control and restrictions on law-abiding citizens ringing out from those who choose to politicize these events instead of trying to seek to understand what could possibly be the root causes of such cultural rot that it leads to actions like these, especially by young men. Just 24 hours before these shootings, I had Jackson, Mississippi native and radio host Clay Edwards on this show asking that very question. My guest today is retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Chris Hinkle, who has vast experience investigating crimes. He's the host of the Blunt Force Conservative podcast. You got to go follow that and watch it. He has great guests. He's a frequent radio and TV guest and even guest hosts our friend Clay Edwards' radio show right there in Jackson. Plus, he's undefeated on the constitutional debate stage. Chris, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. I'm sorry it has to be under these circumstances.
I am too. Thanks for having me back on, Rob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you've worked law enforcement in this part of the country, in this state. You have a lot of experience at these kind of things. Are you surprised the FBI stepped into this? I mean, they're not technically, I guess, federal crimes for the most part, are they?
Well, not really. It's going to depend on whether or not they have some tie to, dealing with the schools with some type of civil rights violation. But they can initially step in and provide some assistance to law enforcement. We did have a case classification for that allowed us to bring some of the federal resources to bear and to help out the local law enforcement, whether that be analytical work, processing of evidence, things like that.
Yeah. The incidents themselves, I mean, you're from this part of the state, so were you surprised by the magnitude of this number of incidents?
Not really. If you've been anywhere around, especially universities like Jackson State University, and I'll refer to them as HBCUs. That's what they've wanted to be referred to, and it's odd that they want to be referred to as HBCUs when it benefits them. But when we're highlighting some problems in the area, these areas that are predominantly Black African American areas, also under the jurisdiction of the congressional representative Benny Thompson. There is one school, I believe it is Heidelberg High School. It's in Jasper County that is in the representation of Michael Guest. But the bulk of this is under Benny Thompson. And the last look that I had just a little while ago to determine if Benny had weighed in on any of this, nothing.
Yeah. Are you surprised by that, Chris?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I have to admit, though, I am surprised because a little by some of the things in this story, and we'll have several video clips during the show that other people will notice what I've noticed too. But the young lady that was being interviewed in that first clip, the reason I chose it was because of who she is. She was the head of the NAACP chapter there in Leland, and the positive things that I heard from her was she talked about accountability, that there have to be consequences for young people. I mean, so my point with that is those are good things to hear from community leaders, no matter what their skin color is, right?
It is. What I am curious about, and I haven't done a look yet, is someone I had a lot of interaction with when I was running the civil rights program for the FBI in Mississippi, and that's the former Mississippi president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson. Now he's the national president. Has he weighed in on this area, this Mississippi area where he's from, and what is the cause of this? Or are they desperately, seeking some other reason other than they're not well represented in Congress? They're not taken care of through the school districts. And we can talk about some things that I think have contributed to the decline in the Mississippi school systems. It is on the turnaround now, but we did have a long period of time where we were 48th, 49th, and 50th in the nation in education. So it's unsurprising that this type of product would come out of those communities.
Yeah. And this part of the state isn't the only part of the state that has schools that are predominantly black population kids either, though. But we don't seem to be having these types of issues at homecoming games around here. I mean, I've got a great high school not far from my house. You can hear the fireworks go off at the football games when they get a touchdown, and those kind of things. And we don't have that problem down here where I'm living. Haven't even a peep about it. What do you think is going on in this area, in this really primarily Benny Thompson's congressional district?
It's going to take a partnership between the community and law enforcement and the elected representatives, and the citizens actually holding their elected representatives accountable for things that go on in their districts. Now, we have some problems in Madison County. If you go up toward Canton, into that area, we've got some major issues going on in the city of Canton. But when you look at cities within Madison County, like where I live in Madison, the city, we have one of the largest high schools in the state. We don't have incidents like that here. You know why? Because we have a great partnership with our law enforcement. We have a great partnership with and holding our elected representatives accountable, and the community gets involved in it as well. So if there's any nefarious activity, the community is quick to act and identify who is responsible for it. It's been very difficult in the law enforcement community in a lot of these counties. You've got Claiborne County, Hinds County, Sharkey, Jasper, and Washington County. It's been very difficult to get the community to be involved in identifying who is responsible for this. It doesn't surprise me that we've only had 6 arrests thus far out of these 5 incidents.
Why do you think that is?
I just think that there's a distrust of law enforcement from some of the people in the community, and a lot of that has been based on what their representatives say. Just here down in Hinds County, I can remember years ago, I was still inside the FBI, and we've got one of the individuals that's on the board of supervisors in Hinds County, Kenneth Stokes. And when we were having issues where individuals were coming out of Jackson, Mississippi, committing crimes in Rankin County, down, further south, when they would run back to Jackson, Mississippi, he actually encouraged the citizens to throw rocks at police officers from the surrounding communities that were chasing them back into those areas. So it doesn't surprise me that you've got a lot of distrust. I saw a lot of that firsthand in the FBI. It's going to take a while to build that trust back, but it's first going to happen by holding accountable individuals like Benny Thompson for what's going on in his district, and holding accountable even my congressman, Michael Guest, for what's going on in Jasper County at Heidelberg High School. I haven't heard anything from him yet.
It's amazing there's silence, isn't it? You have community leaders like you and Clay Edwards who don't have government power. Myself, we don't have any government power. We don't have a problem talking about the truth on this subject. I know a lot of people get queasy when I say young black men, but Clay Edwards is right when he talks about how there's a moral rot that's in place in schools, communities, and we need to be investigating on why that is and how folks can help stem that tide, because that's the only way to do it. We got to take a break real quick, Chris. But when we come back, I want to dive into that a little bit, but also dive into what kind of procedures local and federal law enforcement are doing to work together as a team on this type of investigation, because it's pretty widespread geographically and across the state. See you in a minute.
We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa that got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHousebg.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action.
Breaking news is topping the 10 tonight as 4 people are arrested after a deadly mass shooting in Mississippi. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Greg Hurst.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Skurlock. The FBI announcing those arrests just a short time ago. Authorities have charged Tevion Powell, William Bryant, and Morgan Lattimore with capital murder. LaToya Powell is charged with attempted murder. All the charges stem from Friday night's shooting in Leland, Mississippi, which left 6 people dead and 10 others wounded. The gunfire broke out along Main Street after the Leland High School homecoming game. Tonight, a vigil was held for those victims.
We are also following.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. Here it's Truth Thursday. My guest is former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Chris Hinkle, who ran the FBI Civil Rights Program here in Mississippi when he was active in service with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And Chris, some of these clips are a little bit older. The first one I showed the latest numbers, 10 dead and 5 arrested so far. So just to caveat that, folks. But you know, when I look at this, one of the things that struck me right out of the gate was that FBI Director Patel actually was notified of it and spoke about it already. And we were talking about senior leaders not weighing in so far. That impressed me and told me that, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of this from a crime perspective and who the perpetrators were, and they're going to be held accountable, at least at the federal level. How about you?
I'm sorry, Colonel, you cut off. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Things went silent. I thought you froze a little bit there. What was the question again?
Yeah, FBI Director Patel weighed in pretty quickly publicly on this incident and offering FBI resources and to do an investigation and those kind of things. So at least we know that he saw it and the team notified him right away, and that we're going to see some accountability here of these perpetrators, at least at the federal level. What about local and state level? What can we expect there?
I think you're going to see a lot of action taken at the local and state level. We've got some great partnerships in the forms of our violent crimes task forces. Although we had a lot of issues in Hinds County and in Jackson when I was running the Violent Crimes Safe Streets Task Force, in addition to the Civil Rights Program, the guys on the task force were true blue individuals. They were interviewed by the FBI. They were well vetted and brought in based on their expertise, their connections to the community. I think that's going to play a big role. I think you'll see the FBI and Patel getting behind these sheriff's offices when they do make these arrests and allowing them to take the credit for the work that they're doing. I think that you're going to see a lot more of that. It's going to take a little bit of time to earn that trust back for the FBI and the federal government. But the people that serve on these sheriff's departments and police departments, they're from your local community. So if they can't gain your trust, then it's going to be really hard for the federal government to gain your trust. And then on top of that, we need the help of our elected representatives. They need to be speaking out. They spend too much time, pontificating, engaging in theater about, national initiatives, national things that are going on. And then they seem to neglect what's going on in their own backyard and speaking out here.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's a certain form of cowardice that occurs, I think, when something happens in your own backyard, and it takes you a minute sometimes to go, wow, we weren't looking in the right places. But maybe they should listen to people like you and Mr. Edwards and Kim Wade, also out of Jackson, Mississippi, more, and listen to their consultants and their staffers a little bit less, because they don't live here. A lot of them.
That's true. That is true. I can't recommend more my two good friends, Kim Wade and Clay Edwards. And I, like Clay, will call it like I see it. It is not racist for me to say that there is a culture rot going on in the Black community, particularly in Mississippi, in the Delta area, predominantly in the district of Benny Thompson. He's been there a long time, and it's gotten progressively worse each year. It's time for some accountability there. But the accountability starts with us holding our own representatives accountable, holding the state Mississippi GOP accountable. Should be an opportunity, never let a tragedy like this go to waste. It's an opportunity to get some change in Benny Thompson's district. And rather than having our lieutenant governor and some of his sycophants in the state house here expanding the territory under Benny Thompson, how about we look at putting up viable candidates that can take him out and getting, as far as election, taking him out in the primary or in the general election. How about getting those individuals and getting behind them and supporting them? The other three candidates, the other three districts that we have here, they're going to stay Republican. There's no chance of them flipping to Democrat. So let's put our resources into flipping that last vestige of the Democrat stronghold, which is Benny Thompson. Instead of growing it, how about let's change it? Let's put it in under the R for the Republican Party and put a strong conservative in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to do it in the last segment, but let's go there now. I was just at lunch with, I think there were 9 or 10 of us there, one statewide elected official. I won't name names right now, but we had a discussion about redistricting in the Louisiana case that was argued before the Supreme Court just yesterday. And I've been calling for this for a while. Young Hunter Estes, who is an active young man in Republican politics here in Mississippi, has called for it first before I saw it. And that is, why do we have a Marxist in office like Benny Thompson in the state of Mississippi anyway? Why don't we redraw that district now? Can't the governor call a special session and do a redistricting redraw? Look, Massachusetts has 4 blue districts, and they have 40% Republicans and 60% Democrats in that state. Well, we have about 60% Republicans and 40% Democrats in our state with 4 districts. We ought to have 4 red districts, and I think we're in good standing to go ahead and do it now before 2026, and we could have 4 Republican congressmen. What do you think about that?
No time like the present, and those questions need to be asked. I like Hunter Estes. I follow him on X, think he's a good guy. But those questions need to be asked of the Mississippi GOP. Are we going to look at growing the GOP instead of allowing Benny Thompson to gain another county, 50% of this state belongs to Benny Thompson's district. Everything west of I-55, which runs up and down the middle of Mississippi, is Benny Thompson. The other 3 representatives represent the other 50% on the east side of I-55. Tell me how that's possible, other than a supermajority in the Mississippi State House set it up that way. Now, that case you're talking about, we've got a great opportunity here. If they finally do, Constitution says you can't district based on race. There's no part of the Constitution that allows that. So if that case goes forward and we do away with these racial quotas in these areas, there's no reason Benny Thompson should ever be reelected again.
Yeah, but Governor Reeves, if you ever watch the show, so maybe somebody will send you the clip. You don't have to wait for the case to be decided, though, Chris. I mean, they could push that thing off to January or further and then put us out of the running for 2026. The Governor Reeves could call a special session tomorrow and do this redistricting and redistrict Benny Thompson out of a job and get a Republican elected in there. And maybe that's a wise course of action. Don't wait on the courts. Just move out.
You and I both know who the most powerful state position in Mississippi and who would stand in the way of that. And his name is Delbert Hosemann.
Well, he wants to run for governor, so you'd have to think about that.
Well, he's the lieutenant governor, and the lieutenant governor is the most powerful position because he handles whatever comes to the floor. The governor can rant and rave and say, these are all the things I want. The lieutenant governor can say, I just won't bring it up. or I'll divert it out to multiple committees and we just won't get any resolution on it. What's he talking about right now? Cell phones in schools and school choice, which is another big mistake that they're getting ready to jump into.
Oh, and the lieutenant governor has not talked about these shootings either, has he?
Nope. I think he did post something. He reposted the FBI statement that came out about the shootings, but he hasn't weighed in specifically on it.
Yeah, we've got some challenges here in the state, but as long as we have voices talking about these issues, we have a possibility of getting the right things done. When it comes to these shootings, I've noticed every perpetrator so far, the majority of them have been young black men, uh, at least late teens, most of them late teens, a couple in their 20s and 30s, in every single case, not just one or two. So we do have a problem here in this area. And Benny Thompson's been in control of that area for all this time. What effect can a federal congressman have that he should be having that he's not? I mean, how does he do that from his position?
Well, he could call out leaders in the community. Where are the churches on this? Where's the NAACP? Call them out in the community for not holding each other accountable, for policing their own communities, for identifying when they see something happening, to reporting that immediately to law enforcement, to not be out there saying, don't talk to law enforcement. If the investigators are coming around, provide them the information, provide them the intel. It befuddles me as to why Benny Thompson stays silent on this, but we can have one small incident that he can attribute to some type of racism, and he uses that. And of course, that will make national media. So we've talked about how good at least the local media is at highlighting this in their newscasts, but we haven't seen much in the national media about this.
I haven't seen anything at all, except for maybe one blurb early on the Fox News channel from a national perspective, and that's just disgusting. Especially when you see them going crazy over some out of context group chats of young Republicans that were released. They didn't say anything about the thousands upon thousands of comments celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And now you have this crazy amount of homecoming football game, mass shootings. I think 10 dead. I mean, that's an astronomical number for a Friday night anywhere, let alone in one state, in almost all in one congressional district, and all from the same demographic community, the black community, and almost all the perpetrators all but one of the perpetrators we know of that's been charged so far has been a young black man. And they're not being held accountable. There is a moral rot in their raising that they're being impacted by somehow, some way, and the results are blood and death, destroyed families, and we get what? Well, the Young Republicans group chat was racist. What? Come on, people. That's not how you get things right, number one, and you're not focusing on what needs to be talked about, which is we have a problem, and at least in the state of Mississippi, and I think around this country, in blue cities especially, with this moral rot that Clay Edwards talks about very eloquently on his radio show. And I know eloquent is not the word that you might think of when you think about Mr. Edwards, but he is very eloquent when he discusses this because he is passionate about it and he's right. We got to get to the bottom of it. Got to take a break, Chris. We'll be right back here on the Rob Maness Show with Chris Hinkle. It's Truth Thursday. We're talking about the homecoming shooting tragedy here in Mississippi.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Investigators are still working around the clock in Leland following a mass shooting that left 6 people dead.
12 News' Mercy Rain joins us from Leland with the latest on where the investigation stands. Mercy, what's going on out there?
Thanks, Walt. Well, I'm back outside of the Leland Police Department where there has been a steady stream of traffic throughout the afternoon. People in town tell us investigators have been bringing in several individuals for questioning anyone who may have been seen in the area at the time of the shooting. The FBI confirms 5 people have been arrested in connection to the mass shooting that left 6 people dead in the early hours of Saturday morning. And they are asking for the public's help identifying these individuals. Authorities say more arrests are still pending as the investigation continues. We'll continue to update as we learn more. Live in Leland, Mercy Rain, 12 News.
So it's Truth Thursday. We're talking about the tragedy that struck Mississippi last Friday night, homecoming games and celebrations for football homecomings around the state, mostly in Benny Thompson's congressional district, one outlier over in Heidelberg. The biggest one was so far in Leland, Mississippi. And these shooters, my guest today is FBI Supervisory Special Agent retired Chris Hinkle. And these shooters, Chris, have we heard anything about a motive yet?
Heard anything about a motive? It'll be interesting to see if there's any information, if they're able to conduct any type of interview or interrogation of these individuals. But there should be, some interviews ongoing through the community. You don't have a constitutional right to refuse to provide testimony if you're not a protected class like a spouse, a doctor or a priest. Go talk to the brothers, go talk to the parents, go talk to others in the community and compel their testimony to find out what's going on. I know you were looking into what are some things that we could do. I think this recent statement by the Mississippi High School Activities Association, Ricky Neves, is over this particular sport there. He just called for them to not have tailgating at these events. I think there's a little better way to do that. Some years ago, I used to do some soccer officiating here at the high school level, and we had an incident out in West Mississippi at a high school. I'm not going to name the high school, but we had an altercation of fans, of parents and students up in the stands. And the way that you don't want to just turn off all avenues of any type of athletic activities for these students, the ones on the field that didn't have anything to do with it. So what they did is they said, no fans in the stands. We're going to hold the event. We're going to hold the game, and we're just not going to allow anybody to be there. No tailgating, no people in the stands. That way you start kind of holding the people accountable in those schools. And you've got to do it with those schools. You can't do this statewide. You can't tell Madison Central High School or down where you are at Gulfport High School, hey, you haven't had any problems down here, but we got to be fair. Let's just cut off all, extracurricular activities like tailgating around these schools. I think there is a way to do that. The other is I'd like to hear what our state school superintendent's going to say about this, because that person is over the entire school system. And you and I both know in Mississippi, we had a long history of being 48th, 49th, and 50th in education. And what did we do? This again is holding our state representatives accountable. Back in 2013, they hired Carrie Wright and they brought her in as state school superintendent. There were virtually no changes during her tenure from 2012 to 2023. And guess what? Guess what the distinction was of that state school superintendent? Here in Mississippi, she is the highest paid state school superintendent in the nation. She made more money than the state school superintendent in California, New York, and Florida. She made $307,000 a year. That salary was set by our state legislature. So it's going to take, again, holding our elected representatives accountable about what are they going to do, and also holding our communities accountable.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, shutting off activity like stopping tailgating, I mean, those types of attempts to mitigate something is, I just I automatically and instinctively think there's got to be a better way to do it. Maybe for a short period of time, to hold people accountable and say, hey, this is what you're going to lose if you don't follow the rules, or make sure that you have clearly known rules of engagement for those activities at a high school, like no alcohol is allowed at a high school event, and those kind of things. And hopefully they already have that rule. But if it's not being enforced and folks that break it aren't being held accountable, that's one way to look at it too. Same kind of thing with the people in the stands. It probably wasn't for a permanent purposes. It was probably temporary. And once people started following the rules, I'm sure they reset that, right?
They did reset it, but it held that particular community accountable. So it's not shutting it down statewide. It's these
Yeah.
universities. When you have this problem at that university, or you have this problem at that particular high school, you just tell that high school, hey, I'm sorry, you just can't have nice things right now. You've shown that you can't be responsible for it. And until the community comes forward and identifies who these individuals that cause this problem that you're now facing, where you can't tailgate, you can't go watch your child play in an athletic activity. I don't want to hold the kids accountable in the school, the ones that are actually playing out on the field that likely had zero to do with this. But the community needs to be held accountable, because that's where this is happening. All of these events happened on a campus except for one, and that was up in Leland, Mississippi, which happened off campus. But you still can hold the community accountable.
Yeah, I was wondering that about what you just said, Chris, because a lot of the video that I've seen mainly from Leland and Heidelberg. It looks like at least some of the shootings happened on a street downtown in the small town.
That's what I saw too, happening over in Leland, Mississippi. The rest of it, from what I'm seeing from the news reports, and I got a board written up here trying to keep track of everything, it appears that it was happening either on school property or near the school. But isn't it amazing that we've got some of these people out here that spend their life grifting on, oh my gosh, we've had school shootings. And here in Mississippi, we had this horrific event. We've got 10 dead now, 30 plus injured. One of them, an 11-year-old girl that was injured at Jackson State University, cars being set on fire, and the national media is silent on it. That just, to me, that's irresponsible on their part. We need to highlight this out there. It needs to be the forefront. We need to hear our governor calling out Benny Thompson. We need to hear our state attorney general calling out Benny Thompson, and heck, calling out Michael Guest in Jasper County. If I was the elected representative here in Mississippi and something like that was happening in my district, heck, right now they're not working anyway. The government's shut down. Get your butt back here and get into the community and find out what's going on. I'm betting you neither Benny nor Michael Guest have knocked on a single door in any of these counties right here to actually speak to the people.
Yeah, at a minimum, the representative that represents those communities ought to say something, at least on social media. They all have social media accounts, official ones that have staffers running them. They could put out a statement of some sort. Benny hasn't even called for more gun control. Now, there have been calls for more gun control, another dumb idea that doesn't work. What do you say about that when people come in for those type of crazy ideas?
Well, you mentioned that I'm undefeated on the constitutional debate stage. I've had a number of debates, some of them with some of my fellow FBI retirees. There's one out there right now that grifts a little bit off of this, and I called this individual out because they use the terms gun violence and political violence. Well, when you say gun violence, you're blaming the nefarious activity on the object that was used to commit the activity, and not the person doing that. Same thing with the political violence. You're trying to say that the person's speech their own speech was responsible for the activity that was taken against them. You're probably not going to find, if you do, I want to meet that person, somebody that is as pro Second Amendment as I am. I believe in zero restrictions on ownership of firearms, no restrictions whatsoever. And I heard you on the spaces before, talking about the age restrictions on there. I'm against those as well. I'm also for that once you've done your time in federal prison, once you are released, you have paid your debt to society. I think you should actually get your voting rights back, and you should get your ability to carry a firearm back. Because if you're that dangerous that we don't want you to have a firearm anymore, what are you doing on the outside anyway? So I'm a big proponent of that. I'm a big proponent of having some of us in retired federal law enforcement. We're trained right now. We have this thing called HR 218 that allegedly allows me to carry concealed in all 50 states. I just have to qualify on a state level course each year. But I think it should be carried further. How much safer would you feel on an aircraft if you had 4, 5, maybe 6 retired FBI agents on there, fully trained, fully vetted, carrying firearms to protect that aircraft? I know it's a topic for another day, and we're talking about the school shootings. But man, we got a lot of individuals here, Antifa-like and others, that are raising all kinds of cane out there. And how soon before they start causing some of these problems on aircraft? I'd like to be able to make sure that we can take care of that on an aircraft. Same thing in these local communities. We found that any time that we've got eliminated or reduced restrictions to firearms, crime rate's gone down. Let's do that again.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I'd go even further on the concealed carry. Look, I'm a retired military guy. I've been carrying firearms professionally my whole life. Give me a training class and I'll conceal carry too. Who else are you going to trust except for the most trusted people on the planet when it comes to your safety? I mean, that's who we are.
Yep, it's amazing. May 25th, 2019, the day I retired, I was qualified, available, could get on an aircraft with a firearm. May 26th, not allowed. What changed there other than I moved to a different status? I think that is something that the president should start looking into, is expanding those carry authorities with former military and former law enforcement. Heck, they're already bringing back federal law enforcement into other areas. I've got a friend of mine out in Arizona. She retired from the FBI about 2 or 3 years ago. Now she's back working full pay, 1811 series investigator with Homeland Security. I've got another friend of mine. He just retired from the FBI in June, then just received a communication wanting to know if he wants to come back, draw his full retirement, plus draw his full 1811 salary on top of that, because we've had a flood of individuals that have gone out the door. This is one of the mistakes I think that's been made by this administration, has been made by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, is setting up the area to allow a lot of individuals that have tenure and experience in the FBI that could mentor some of the new trainees coming in. They've gone on the outside, and now they're scurrying, trying to bring some of those individuals back. I'm a little long in the tooth. It's been 6.5 years. I doubt very seriously they're reaching out to me. Although I would entertain if Dan Bongino decided to step down, I might entertain stepping into that role there. I kind of know where things are in the FBI. I've been pretty vocal about some changes that need to be made. If you want to pass that message along, if Dan wants to take a break and go back to his radio career, I might entertain doing that.
Yeah, but you just criticized him. That's what they're going to say. Well, he just criticized us. Why would we want him?
I think Dan would agree with my assessment that they let too many people get out.
I'm sure he would. Well, when we come back, we got a hand up in the audience, and I want to continue this discussion because, like you, Chris, I was qualified to carry a firearm on aircraft professionally, and the day I left the service, I no longer was able to do that. And that could be changed with a stroke of a pen, Mr. President, if you're listening. We'll be right back with former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Chris Hinkle.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Authorities have made more arrests connected to the deadly shooting at a high school football game in Heidelberg. Just this evening, police in Heidelberg reported the arrest of 19-year-old Jabari Deshaun Collins for weapon possession on school grounds and 19-year-old Jadarius Cortez Page on an accessory charge. Earlier, Jasper County Sheriff Randy Johnson reported the arrest of 19-year-old Demarion Starks this morning. Now, he's charged with accessory after the fact and tampering with evidence. A minor was also taken into custody for tampering. Saturday, investigators arrested 18-year-old Taylor Goodlow, and he faces 2 counts of capital murder in the deaths of 2 people, including a pregnant woman. Residents say the shootings have left this community in shock and fearful.
It's kind of sad to me because I'm a mother, and I can just imagine that somebody else's kids, living out there without a mother. So it's like I say, it's just sad. It's very sad. You would never think that something would happen in a small town of Heidelberg like this. So now everybody just got to come together and we just got to pray.
Goodlow's bond is set at $2,010,000 cash. Law enforcement have not released a motive.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and I'm talking with my guest from Mississippi, retired Supervisory Special Agent Chris Hinkle, about the strategy and the investigation and the moral rot, as Clay Edwards puts it, that is happening in these communities that results in young men like those guys facing capital murder charges. And folks, we just executed a murderer here in Mississippi, I think early this morning or maybe late last night. So we still have the death penalty, and each one of these young men now has destroyed other people's lives if they are found to be guilty and they actually did these acts, and face the end of their lives way too young. And there's got to be a remedy that we can find. And Chris, we were talking about retired personnel with experience being utilized. Look, one of the disturbing things I heard when I listened to parts of the Supreme Court discussion yesterday, the oral arguments on the redistricting case from Louisiana, was one of the justices implying that black people can't be represented by anybody but a black person. Your comments about using retired personnel for certain types of activities, why not recruit us to go into the schools and be mentors? Why not? I think most people would do it for free. They wouldn't even ask for any pay, maybe some traveling. I don't know.
I've offered to do that for free. Even here, we've got a great school system in Madison County. Madison Central High School is not just one of the top schools in the state, but one of the top schools in the nation. I mean, out of 700 and so seniors, they usually have about 108 individuals that score 30 plus on the ACT. But I've even offered that when I was taking the time to meet with the Madison County School Board representatives during all the COVID overreach by our government in the schools. I noticed that when I would offer an opportunity to bring my knowledge, skills, training, and experience into the classroom and speak to, if there's a civics type, I don't even know if they teach civics anymore, but a civics type course there to actually teach them. It's not just at the high school level. I'll tell you a quick story. I got approached by one of the junior colleges here in Mississippi, and this is something that needs to change. So A four-year university, Tulane, had approached me about teaching a law enforcement class, a law enforcement specific class. And
Mm-hmm.
I was allowed to do that. I don't have a master's degree, but I have a bachelor's degree and I have 33 years of government experience, 25 of it as a federal agent, 20 plus of it with the FBI. But
Yeah.
a junior college had reached out to me about teaching a law enforcement class. I went through their online indoctrination. It's a 2-week course. I got through the first week of it, passing with flying colors. And then I was told that I couldn't teach it. They said that because I didn't have at least 18 hours at the master's degree level, I was unqualified to teach at the junior college level. But a 24-year-old or 23-year-old that just got their master's degree with
Yeah.
zero experience could actually go in and teach there. That's something that needs to change as well.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I'll tell you a secret. I applied for an adjunct professor, so like part time at a leadership school at one of the local universities. I didn't even get a call back because I'm assuming they looked at my birthday and determined I was too old. Well, we got questions over in the live audience. Let's go ahead and take those before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Shel.
Chris, if any of these shooters were minors, is there any chance that they will not be charged as adults for this crime?
That's going to be a decision that's going to be made by the whoever's prosecuting this. I'm guessing it's going to be the district attorney on whether or not they're going to do that. I also am curious what their past criminal history looks like, if that's something that's going to weigh in on it. I'm going to bet you we're going to find that these individuals have had trouble with law enforcement for quite a while, and they've been on the radar of local law enforcement, been on the radar in the local community, but the local community has failed to hold them accountable and rein them in.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, but I suspect you're absolutely right. You know, uh, it's just tough. Accountability is key, especially in young people and young men, especially if they're not held accountable and they repeatedly get away with criminal activity or even activity approaching criminal activity. It's not necessarily criminal. They tend to get worse over time as they get older. We got one more question in the audience. Go ahead, Joe.
We have Rigo, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me ask. I'm involved in high school sports. My kids play high school sports and football to top it off. My question is, are there not assigned officers to these football games that are supposed to be patrolling like that? The last high school game that I went at home, I was kind of shocked, but I was like, well, I guess it's needed. There was at least 4 patrol officers there, 2 at the gate, 2 roaming the parking lot and stuff, even for the tailgaters. It kind of deters it. So my question is, does your state not do this, or do you guys not do this? Because this is a regular practice here in California, just so you know.
Yeah, we do that here. It just depends on the district. I know here in Madison, at Madison Central High School, you can't get even close to the stadium without going through some type of checkpoint through law enforcement. Now, they're not searching you for weapons and all of that. They are looking for indicators, profiling, if you will. If you look like you might be some trouble, they may ask you a few questions, do some type of Terry stop. Those of you that are unfamiliar with that, in Terry versus Ohio, that allowed a law enforcement officer who is part of the community that they recognize something that seems odd, that they can ask additional questions just based on their observations. That's profiling. Profiling is a big part of law enforcement. It doesn't have to be something that's solely based on race. But yeah, there should be a call to have more open presence of law enforcement in these areas, more patrol cars, more uniformed officers, of letting people know that, hey, there are officers here that aren't dressed as officers, that are walking around the premises here, of allowing individuals that, like myself, when I was with the FBI, being able to go down and hang out with the local sheriff's office. We tried to encourage as many as we could from our local office to appear there, but it still comes back to the community. If they need to be afraid that the citizens, that the parents in that community, that when they see something odd, it's going to get reported. You can't just depend on just law enforcement, because you need to be able to take care of it on your own, because when seconds matter, law enforcement will be there in minutes.
Yeah, I just can't help but think as the questioner was asking that question you were answering, Chris, that what you had talked about earlier in the show about the distrust with local law enforcement and between them and the community is probably has some factor in how much security is available, who's doing it, and those kind of things in some of these communities.
It likely does. Most of these law enforcement officers live in that community there. They don't want to be thought of poorly in that community, but it's going to take getting out and building that trust with them, of doing things like you just talked about earlier. The schools opening up and allowing these law enforcement officers to come in and talk about what they do, the fact that they put their lives on the line, the fact that they run toward gunfire, not away from it, so that, what was it we were told when we were kids? If you get lost, find a police officer. But sadly,
Yeah.
that's not the case.
Yeah, our whole society, large swaths of it, the kids have been raised over the last 15, 20 years to not trust anybody in law enforcement. Now, with the last 5 to 10 years, even those of us that grew up trusting law enforcement have a hard time with some of the ways law enforcement at the federal level, especially, has been used. How do we build that back across the board?
You get back to basics. It's one of the recommendations I made, and I'll speak specifically from my FBI experience. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. Some of it's being spread by Republicans. Some of them, even from this White House, that there's a culture rot inside the FBI. There is not a culture rot among the agents, the street agents that are there. I spent over 20 years inside the FBI. I can count on one hand the number of individuals that I thought were woke or leaned too far to the left and still be able to hold something in my hand. It just didn't exist. What had happened was when we started bringing in some of the younger individuals in the support roles, in the analytical roles, and then when you had individuals started with Mueller, and then when it went to Comey and Wray, of putting these support individuals that didn't have the law enforcement bona fides, putting them in charge of areas of the FBI that were predominantly led by field agents, agents that had the street experience out there. And I've called for the elimination of that. You need to get back to the way it was. It was a much more trusted organization when I came in the 90s than it is now. But you do that by behaving professionally, doing the job. I like what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino put out on Twitter recently, commending the agents that were out on the street for going after these violent criminals and bringing the fight to them and letting cops be cops. I think the more professional you've seen out there, the more that we bring some sense of sanity and security back to these communities, the trust will return.
Oh yeah, I mean, what I like is the actions. The action of putting cops out to do their cop job, to go after the bad guys, and not going chasing MAGA grandpas and grandmas around half the world and wasting resources on that kind of activity, but focusing on the criminals, focusing on the potential spies in our midst. That's what the FBI that I know growing up should be doing. And that's what I like to see. Instead of talking a bunch about it, Kash and Dan are out there putting people to work and taking the right action. So I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing. Hey, man, we got about 40 seconds left. Go ahead and tell folks where they can find you and the podcast and what you're going to do next.
Well, you can follow me on X. That's the best place to find me, at capital BF Conservative, all one word. We right now we're streaming out on YouTube and the podcast on X. And then right before we get off here, I want to give a big shout out to my brand new first ever grandchild, my granddaughter, Sutton Grace. Became a grandfather a month ago yesterday. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. I understand what other grandparents have told me, which is, man, if I could find a way just to have grandkids first. It is just an amazing experience. So shout out to Sarah Grace, my daughter-in-law, and Sutton Grace, and my new our new little granddaughter.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Let's pray for these families and these kids that have lost their lives, and that justice will be done. We'll see you later, Chris. Monday is More War Monday again, but I got Corey DeAngelis coming on. He's a warrior and an evangelist to make sure schools are taking care of kids and not taking care of administrators and teachers unions. So we're talking about the war on school kids with Corey DeAngelis coming up on Monday. I'll see you then.